Hello everyone, thank you for joining. My name is Roberto and I will be talking about user experience and what we can do as developers to improve our app, mostly. Well, yeah. Okay, first of all, why are we here? Yeah, most probably because we are developers, apart from some designers that are here in the front row. And yeah, already the first mistake. I changed the slide earlier. So, well, I was saying, we are developers, and we have not, maybe, all the graphical skill that we need to create a proper design. Yeah, are you working? Yeah. But still, we can do amazing things if we just think as users. Okay? So, first of all, what is the user experience? Well, we can say almost certainly that UX and UI are not the same thing. UI is a big part of the UX, but, well, I don't know if you took latest trains that we have here. They are incredibly beautiful, but they're small. So when there are a lot of people, well, you are on a very, very good-looking train. So the UI is good, but still the experience sucks. How can you explain that? Exactly for that. We can say that the user experience is whatever the user feels, while the user interface is what the user sees, more or less. And moreover, we all are users. That gives us a strong point in understanding what's wrong with our app. And that is important because we live in a world where the user is the center of all our work. Without users, our app is useless because nobody will download it, and personally, I will not code something that nobody will use. I mean, I'm lazy and that is a waste of time. So, normally, when you are in a big company, the flow of a feature is divided between a lot of persons, a lot of people. So, there is a UX designer that thinks about a feature, will sketch it, prototype it, make some researches, and see if it's really needed. And when all of this is over, the designer comes in and starts with the user interface and the interactions. After all, there is the developer. You receive more or less precise guideline, and then you start coding. But, well, is this the best way? Spoiler alert, no. We can do that better, in a very better way. I'm not sure that was English, but still. We could act like a team. That means that we can work at the same table with designers, as I personally did multiple times, and just avoid all the pain that comes after, because you can understand right away what's wrong and also suggest what can be implemented in a different way for our platform. Because we know Android. Most probably our designer is not a strong Android user. Maybe they are a iOS user, or, God have mercy on his soul, Windows Phone users. That is even worse. And they don't recall all the patterns on all the single platforms. That's why, with our help, they can create something that is even more beautiful. But for doing that, well, we have to have a little patience between, well, all together. So, let's take a look about, well, all the things that you can encounter when you are coding a new app. And one of the first issues that you will ever face is about typing the password. So, we are coding for a platform that is more or less mobile, more mobile than, well, like a desktop. Okay? So, most of our users will use their device while moving or while using something else, or doing something else. So, for instance, imagine that you want to buy a new computer because you were just walking across the street and saw that the new MacBook is here, but it's on sale just for today, and you need to check if your paycheck has arrived. You open your bank app, and you try to type the password. But in the while, well, I don't know, are called by someone, and your attention fades away for a second. Then you keep on typing, but you don't recall exactly at what point of the password you were. So you press login, and the authentication fails. And you start over. Something happens again, and this is happen one more time. Yeah, this can be unusual, but it's not. I mean, it happens to me every time. I cannot type a password. But we can help the users just by showing them the password briefly. This sounds like a very small improvement, but imagine that you can actually see what you're typing right away and then hide it again. Most probably you will never miss a password anymore, and you don't have to deal with errors, or less errors actually. So it's pretty good. Then there is the navigation. I mean, we are all used to all the Android apps and the fact that we all know the navigation drawer. But, well, this is not the right solution for everything. Take, for instance, this app here that was one of the first releases of Google Play Movies. The navigation drawer was pretty empty because they wanted to show us that they can do that. But was that the proper solution? Honestly, I don't think so. And I actually appreciate the solution made by WhatsApp a little more. Because you have right there all the things that you can do with the app in a single window. So they're not hidden, and the user knows right away, with a native pattern, what they can do. And talking about what WhatsApp did, this little guy here can help you a lot in giving context to the users. What I mean with context? Well, let's get back for a sec and take a look to WhatsApp. Okay? Here, you have all the single actions, okay? Calls, chat, and contacts. The toolbar there gives the user the right context. They know that they can make a new call, add a new contact, or send a new message right away. It's easy, no? And moreover, the toolbars are way easier to style and extend than action bars that most of the times are really a pain. But, well, we have them, so we can use them. And then there is something that I fear every time. Double back to exit. Yeah, well, I guess that we all know this thing, and we all hate it. Because, well, if I want to exit the app, yeah, it's like that. I just want to get out of that app. And pressing twice, it's just frustrating. If you need this thing to keep the user entertained, maybe there is something that is wrong in the flow. Because these things here are not natural. I mean, imagine that you want to get out of your home. You try to put your hand on the handle of the door, and the door asks you, are you sure you want to get out? Yeah, that's why I was going that way. And also, on Android, you have to remember what the user pressed and reset this preference after an amount of time, so that you have to double back to exit every time. And it's a lot of work, and again, we are really lazy. So I would just avoid that. And this is my favorite topic that I discussed quite a lot with my friends, because my guess is that we usually don't really need to lock the orientation of our app. On Android, it's pretty easy to just distribute the content or make something disappear on one orientation or one other. And also, there is a difficulty that is given by the user preference. I mean, I know a lot of people that, by default, uses their phone just in landscape, in portrait. So they lock the orientation. Usually, when you lock the orientation, you forget, I did for sure, forgot that the user could have preferred something that I did not take in account. And when my activity is over, I reset to another value. So the user was not happy. And usually on Android, how much work is it to change layout? Well, not that much. And also, I know a friend that, well, he did not agree on this the first time, but then he had the very amazing opportunity of having his app featured on Google Play. One of the first things that Google said was, yeah, well, I cannot rotate that. I don't like it. So Google likes rotating things. And this is really important for the user because imagine that you are at the doorbell and you rang. Nothing happened. Then the people inside hear me or not? Well, it's the same. If you don't show the user that you are doing something, that means, for instance, changing the background of a button, or also using haptic feedback, or even sound, if you really want to annoy them, is important. Because they know, at least, that something was listening to their touch. So, again, this is one of the main goals of our apps, to respond to the user's need. And the feedback is telling them that we were listening. Doesn't matter what we will do later, but they know that we were there. And talking about being there, yeah, usually we overdo with errors. I mean, with an error like that, that says that there is something wrong with an HTML, I wouldn't know how to avoid it. But I developed the app, so I know what could go wrong and why that error was there. But the users don't care. They just want to know how they can avoid to see that really nasty dialogue. So one of the most important things is that we shall tell the users how to avoid making these mistakes. Maybe they're not mistakes, but well, because we know it. So if we know what could go wrong and what needs to go right in order to avoid this thing, we just need to say that. It's really easy. Also because we will avoid a lot of things then. And, well, that is another nice thing that we have now, the floating action button. Well, this defines a primary action. I saw in a talk today about the primary action on Gmail. That is to write email. But most probably, we don't need that. I mean, most of the apps don't have a very specific primary action that we want to advertise. So don't try to, well, like Google did here, in an experiment, having two floating buttons right away to show if it was a docx or a Google Doc to create right away. It's something that you can decide later. You need to create a doc. This is the main purpose of a doc app. Later, you can save it in a different format. But it's not something that you want to decide right away. So if you have a feature that is really important for your view, well, it's good to advertise it, to elevate it, and make it a floating action button. But again, this is not even a notification. So it's good to experiment, but remember that we have tools the user are used to. Those tools have a meaning, and we can experiment, but also we must be able to roll back if those experiments are not good. And then, long operations. It may happen, like in the Play Store, that they need to process a lot of data. Like load all of our apps, check which needs to be updated, and show the list. But maybe an empty window with just a spinner is not, well, it's not really the most explanative thing that you could add there. Because for new users, well, you're just doing something. But what is that you are doing? Well, you can tell it simply if you cannot add any content. Of course, there might be other ways to do that. I'm not aware of some, but I think that actually just a text view saying, I'm loading all your apps, could have helped all the new users. Maybe not us, because we know what's happening there, because we check the Play Store like 300 times a day, but not all the users do that. The new users most probably will just stare and say, yeah, there's something wrong here. Maybe it's the network, maybe it's my phone. Maybe we could just say that. Let them wait for a couple of seconds, unless we can actually fill the empty state. In that case, well, this is our main duty. Because if a user can see something like the second screen that tells them right away how to add the content in our app, they will most probably start using it right now, even if just to test that. But if they say something really empty or confusing, well, that is not encouraging. I mean, I wouldn't know how to use that, but wait, this is really simple. So if you don't have content, that might be the case when the user starts using your app, well, maybe you can help them with a very big button that can tell them, yeah, you can add content here. Or even if you expected something from the network that didn't come, you can just say, yeah, you can refresh. And the user can keep on pushing like that. But still, it will be easier for them to understand than a full empty state. Now, let's talk about something that is a bit more technical and, well, it's not really related to errors that we make. Or, well, someone could tell me that it is, but, and would be wrong, would be right, sorry. See, the overdraw. That means that we are drawing the same pixels over and over more times than we actually need. Take the picture on the left. That part red here was drawn at least 3 times, slowing the user interface, because you are going to miss the 16 milliseconds frame. That is the time that you have to execute all your code before it's rendered. It sounds quite like a lot of time, but it's not. And if you skip even 1 frame, the user will notice, because the interaction will not be smooth. And how can we achieve that? Well, there are multiple ways. One of them could be to remove all the backgrounds that you don't need, because you won't see. Imagine that, for instance, this view here has a background, and the layout in which it's contained has another background, and the activity has another background. There are 3 backgrounds that you have to draw every time, but you just see this one. So removing the background could help already a lot. Otherwise, if a view is only partially overlapped, you can just maybe clip it so that only the part that you actually render is visible, and you avoid drawing something that is not there because it's stuck under something else. And then something that I learned about from my friend Daniele, that is not here today. He wrote an article very interesting about how they manage casting things, well, casting movies on a TV. So one of the first things is how they managed to actually have an icon that was appearing to show the users what was possible and what was not possible in their app. That means that if a Chromecast was not there, well, you will see nothing, because there's nothing to see. But if the Chromecast was there, then you will notice right away, and if you decided to connect, the icon started animating, so that you know that something was happening. And when the connection finally was achieved, you were notified. And on the receiver, something started. That something, in this case, was a very nice combination of scenes and spinner that could tell the user, hey, I'm loading the content, stay for a couple of seconds, and the reproduction will start. It's amazing. Then the movie started, and the user forgot their phone. After a while, they were distracted, and they lost a couple of sentences. So, well, they took their phone and switched on the screen. And they found this custom controller. Custom why? Because normally you would have here a rewind or fast forward button. But in that case, it was not really the best thing, because you maybe you just need to, you're watching a movie and you don't need to go to the beginning or to the end. That's where Daniele put his touch. By helping the user in just rewinding a small part of the movie, so that they didn't need to actually use the SIG bar. Also because the SIG bar is not there as soon as you switch on the phone. You have to enlarge the notification, and then you will see it. Still, this is a very nice touch. Because, I mean, if I'm watching a movie, this will be much more helpful than going back to the right beginning. And this is something that, well, we heard about in the keynote, Android Wear. Okay, I see that in that part of the room, a lot of people has got an Android Wear on their wrist, at least 2. Oh, quite a lot. I mean, well, why has Android Wear been invented? Well, for micro interactions. That means that the purpose of Android Wear was to keep you away from your world for the smallest amount of time possible, and then its purpose is done. But, well, this part here that actually I love Minum, it's really a nice keyboard, but on a watch can be a bit tricky. I mean, if you really need to type on your watch, it's not about micro interactions anymore, because you have to focus and check what you're typing. And, well, that actually undermines the first of the things that Google said. That was, you have to keep in mind the micro interactions. That must be the least possible interaction between you and the watch. Okay? And then you also have to design for big actions, because if the interaction needs to be fast, well, it's most probably the user could mistype, misclick actually, easier. So if you design for bigger actions, the possibility of error will be minified. And also, if you have a simple design, it will be even simpler for the user to understand the purpose of what is seen on the watch. So again, Minun is a very, very interesting project. I love it on my phone, but on my phone. I don't really want to type on my watch, because if I really want to type something, I could just take my phone and type it. You need to have it near here anyway. So just use Android Wear for what it was meant for. And then remember to test your app. And by test your app, I mean that you have to do something that is not easy for us, because we know the app and we know how to use it. And that is not really the best way to actually test the user experience, because not all the users will know right away how to use your app. That's where you need your friends to help. I mean, they don't know what you're working on, and they will tell you right away what's wrong, because you will see that they will make most probably some mistake in using your app. Unless you can really be this guy, ask for help, because it's the first and fastest way to understand if your app has got a very nice user experience or something needs to be tweaked a bit in order to provide something even better. And this is something that I found around while I was playing. Well, I wanted to change the settings of a couple of apps, well, more than a couple, and then I was surprised. Like, where are the settings here? There are some tools, a couple of hammers, a vial, and some dots on the navigation bar that I wish I've never seen again. But, well, this doesn't really look like settings, no? Because we are actually used to something else. Something like this. You have to keep in mind, well, because I have to do that too, to keep in mind that users are used to some iconography. That means that you can experience as much as you want, but you need to recall that users are used to a certain type of symbols to represent certain type of functions, like the settings, for instance. If you put a gear and expect the gear to mean new message, well, maybe it could be, but even you will think right away about the settings, because this is what we are used to. We use Android every day, and if we see a gear, we know that we can change something in the behavior of the app. So it's good to experiment and to give your touch, but recall that there are some patterns that is good to keep in order to make your app simpler. And remember that happy users will always keep using your app if they need it. So there are a couple of other tips that you can actually follow. That means avoiding having networking calls while the user is on battery. Or also avoid some wake locks that are not needed at the right moment because maybe you can postpone them until the user is connected to a power source. Because if you preserve the battery of the users, well, they can keep using your app. If they don't have battery, well, there's no way they can actually use anything. And the battery never lasts enough. So just keep that in mind, maybe. It could help a lot. So, well, I was faster than expected, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I guess that there are no questions. So thanks all for joining.